The recent rapid escalation in the border dispute between Venezuela and Guyana is worrying for the region. So says former St. Lucia ambassador to the United Nations and current senior advisor to the Minister for External Affairs, Earl Huntley, who warns that the deterioration of the dispute is disturbing.
It is an issue that will be of concern to everybody in the Caribbean.
The former ambassador to the United Nations shed some light on the history of the dispute between the two South American neighbors.
That issue is not an old issue. In fact, goes back to an award which was done in the late 1890s, 1895, when Guyana was then part of the British Empire, and the British, together with the Americans, decided to have an arbitration with regard to the border between Venezuela and then British Guyana. That matter was settled. The arbitration award was accepted by Venezuela for a number of years until a memo came to light that was written by one of the lawyers on the American side, a man called Marley Prevost, who declared that the arbitrator was biased in favor of the British and the US. And from since then, Venezuela has raised that issue.
Huntley, who also served as CARICOM's ambassador to Haiti, says there are two main reasons being cited for the recent escalation in this territorial dispute.
But it was dormant for a long time. It really gained international prominence when Venezuela in the 1960s, because of the Cold War, raised the matter to the kind of level that we have seen over the last few decades. And that was because in Guyana, Dr. Chedid Jagan, who was supposed to be a Marxist, was regarded by the US and the Venezuelans as communists. Fidel Castro was in power in Cuba. And the Americans, in fact, were the ones who encouraged the Venezuelans to raise that matter in the 1960s because of what they perceived as a communist threat in Guyana, because they didn't want a so-called communist country on the border of Venezuela after Guyana's independence. And so it is ironic today that the US is now on the opposite side. The US is now on the side of Guyana because of, they do not have very good relations with Maduro, whom they consider leftists. In terms of how this is going to go forward, a lot depends on why Maduro has risen to the level that he has risen to, which has not been raised that way before. And there are two reasons that people have said. One is that because of the oil finds, that are the massive oil finds in the Essequibo region. And secondly, the fact that he's going to face presidential elections next year. And this is a rallying point, because this is a matter that Venezuelans have been taught from the time they're at school, that the Essequibo is Venezuelan.
So, with Venezuela instructing its agents to issue rights for drilling and other economic activity in the Essequibo region, which forms more than 2/3 of Guyana, where does this conflict go from here? According to the vastly experienced diplomat, it all depends on what's driving Venezuela's recent actions. Huntley says the Caribbean nations of Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines and St. Lucia, given their favorable relations with Venezuela, can play a role in de-escalating this border dispute. Stanley Lucian for the HCS News Force.